Well, this is not the regular kind of content you expect on my channel, and quite frankly, it's probably not for the vast majority of people who are subscribed. So if you're just here for the regular stuff, entertainment, education and all that, then you might want to skip this one. But if you aren't, and especially if you're not neurotypical and know the particular challenges that come with that, this is really for you. Just to get that out of the way, because people are quick to jump to conclusions and everything, this is not intended to fish for sympathy or anything like that. I really don't care what you think about me personally in this video. That's not what it's about. I'll tell you about some of my personal experience, but really only so that people can maybe get a different perspective and hear somebody talk about things that aren't talked about that often. Somebody who might share similar challenges and whatnot. If you deal with things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, Asperger's, and a variety of other things, they make everyday life just a little bit different and a little bit more frustrating. If you're one of those people who often ask themselves, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do what everybody else does? Or why can't I do it as well? Or why am I constantly tired, even if it's not physical, seemingly? Things like that. I'll change up the background every now and then to make it less visually boring. So, one thing I've personally always struggled with is low energy, like being tired and just feeling physically not quite right and being easily exhausted for as long as I can think. It's been like that. And I went to so many doctors and all kinds of tests done, multiple times over the years, and they never found anything. It was always like, well, your blood test results are perfectly normal. Your blood pressure is normal. You're everything. Nothing going on. Supposedly, physically. Well, why don't I feel normal then? If you don't know what might be causing it, if you don't know yourself in that sense, it can be very confusing. I'm sure some of you have had similar experiences. Like, I remember my dad helping me with homework in elementary school. Helping, and that didn't turn out so well sometimes, because he had no idea. He didn't know anything about attention deficit disorder. So he just got frustrated with me and just kept telling me, those are really unnecessary mistakes. You just need to focus. And this is just one of those things, It's like people telling a depressed person, oh, just cheer up. Or worse, don't whine. Telling somebody with anxiety, oh, don't worry about it. You worry too much. You just need to stop that. You just need to, stop being how you are. That's basically what it is. You can't just focus. Don't be lazy. You might think that about yourself. You might think that you're lazy, or that you have no willpower, or something like that. But you only think that if you don't really understand what's going on and why you get exhausted. I'll give you an example. Whenever I work on something that requires a high amount of attentiveness, where you can't really afford to make a lot of mistakes because that causes more issues down the line in the production process, or whatever it is really, or increases your risk. If you're out in traffic, for example, you can't just zone out. So whenever I'm in a situation like that, and I need to really put a lot of mental resources into staying tuned in, so to speak. It's a conscious effort because I have to constantly monitor what I'm doing. Because if your attention slips, you don't notice that. I mean, how do you notice not noticing things? How are you aware of your awareness slipping. You have to constantly monitor yourself. The same applies to people with social anxiety or Asperger's, for example, people who have to really monitor themselves and just consciously focus on all the little things, because they have to basically manually learn certain cues, like when talking to somebody, figuring out if they're bored with what you're talking about, or if they're disinterested, or if they don't like you, or whatever. There's this lot of subtle cues and hints, body language, facial expression, and such and such. And people with Asperger's are not good at picking that up, so they have to learn that like an active skill, so to speak, as opposed to passive, like intuitive, because most people do that intuitively. That's sort of extra mental effort that you have to put into something that otherwise kind of runs automatically or at fairly low effort. It's pretty draining. It's a higher resource activity, so to speak, and you have limited resources. That's another thing that people talk about, having a certain number of spoons for the day. It doesn't really matter what you use, what kind of image you use, or what quantity or whatever, how many energy points, or however you want to look at it. There's a certain limit if you're not neurotypical. Of course, this is not to say that neurotypical people have it so easy, everything's easy. No, of course they're dealing with stress, and they can also be depressed and anxious, etc., etc. But for them, it's generally something causes it. They don't get suddenly anxious out of nowhere. A neurotypical person who experiences something stressful or tragic or whatever may feel depressed for a while, but they can point to that which caused them to be depressed. People with clinical depression, they just are. If you don't understand what's causing that externally, and it's actually something internal, it can be very confusing. You may try to just work harder, be better. Just, you tell yourself, well, that can't be. I'm just being lazy. I need to try harder. I need to do better. I need to stop whining and get shit done. Especially as a man, that's what you're socialized into. You're not supposed to show emotions. It's gotten better, but there's still a lot of that old school mentality of, man, just gotta be strong and resilient, and can't even tell anyone what issues he's going through. Is anything in the head? It's not real, or you just gotta, you just need more willpower. You just gotta push through it. And if you tell anyone, it's just whining and bitching and whatever. Back when I was at university studying, I often sat there with the textbook and, just reading through an entire page and then realizing I've not processed any of that. I just went through the motion of reading, which is not much emotion to begin with, and I got nothing. The entire page, gone. So I read it again. Realize, nothing. No retention. Read it again. Stuff like that, over and over again. As a doggy. And I didn't understand why. I thought I was stupid. Quite simply. I thought I was a dumbass. There's a flip side to that, which I heard another YouTuber talk about. The parents always said, well, you're intelligent. You're so intelligent. So everything comes easy to you. You can do anything you want. So if they didn't perform according to the parents' expectations, that was because they were lazy, which led to all kinds of other issues, as you can imagine, coping mechanisms and whatnot that were not all that well adjusted. And I remember hearing that too, back then. Like, well, you're intelligent, you're so much smarter than we are. We're just working class people, and here, look at you, you're going to university and all that. People oversimplify intelligence. And the thing is, generally I would say it's important to talk to people, get support from family members and friends and all of that whenever you can, or at least have somebody to talk to, because sometimes just talking about these things helps you understand yourself better. But of course the problem is not everybody will understand. Sometimes they just have no idea what on earth you're talking about because they don't know anything about the topic and can't relate because it's a completely different experience from what they have. They've never had that. Hey, do you want me to throw the ball or not? Well, there you go. Okay. A random dog just wanted me to throw a ball for him or her. So I did. Wouldn't it be nice to be a dog? You know, be so easily excited and so enthusiastic about what you're doing. Well, it depends. There's also rather neurotic breeds of dogs. But anyway, where was I? So yeah, telling people about it. Sometimes that may not work out. So the good thing is nowadays we're all interconnected through the internet. So you can seek out forums, support groups, etc. And you can share your experience with others who might have gone through the same and may have found some ways to deal with that, or, you know, just kind of exchange perspectives. Of course, none of this means that you shouldn't try. Personally, I'm always concerned about the possibility that I might be using some of this as an excuse to not try as hard as I could. And I always try to make sure that I damn well do. But you can overdo it as well, where you put unreasonable demands on yourself. You know, it's easy to look around and be like, yeah, but all these other people are doing these things that I struggle with, and it doesn't even seem to be hard for them. Like, I gotta be able to do this. Well, you might be able to. It might be a lot harder. Some other things, you know, some things might not be entirely healthy for you to pursue with that kind of vigor, because you're just going to end up frustrated over and over again. You're just going to keep doubting yourself. You're going to keep blaming yourself. You know, it's one thing to hold yourself accountable and to try as hard, like give it real effort, work hard. That's one thing. But beating yourself up over it, it's not good. You know, in fact, you need to know when you're working harder than others. You know, it's easy to always just look at the end result. You know, like, I don't know, somebody else might be going to a social event and actually enjoying it because they're extroverted and they you know, they love it and whatever, you know, it's great for them. But you, if you're introverted, let alone have social anxiety or even ADHD, that can also make things tricky, the same thing, the exact same thing might take a lot more out of you than the other person, and you might just exhaust yourself. So you need to also give yourself some credit for the extra work you do, you know, especially if you're dealing with clinical depression. Every little thing can be daunting, you know, even just trivial things, household tasks, that can be seriously daunting for some people and take a lot out of them and can be extremely hard to manage. And so, you know, if you put a lot of effort into something, even if it seems trivial, even if it would be nothing to somebody else, if it's freaking hard for you, you need to give yourself some credit. And you need to realize that, yes, you got something done that wasn't easy for you. Especially on social media, there's always this pressure to excel. You know, everything needs to be extraordinary. Everything you do needs to be better than average, which is per definition impossible, because guess what? Average. That means the majority of the population is like that. So there's always this focus on being just extraordinary and just tackling everything and being positive about it. And, you know, when it comes to specific goals, I mean, personally, I'm doing really well in my life. I have an amazing partner, like the best I could really ever have asked for. We've been deeply in love for almost 20 years. We're financially stable. I do what I love for a living, even though it can be a lot of work at times, and managing burnout can be challenging. But overall, everything is great. By a lot of metrics, I'm really successful. I don't really feel like it, because I don't have some of the basics covered. I don't have full control over my eating behavior, for example. Something that you'd think like, oh, come on, you just gotta get it together. And for a lot of people, I've heard things like, okay, so I realized I had to quit smoking, so I quit. I just did it. I just stopped. Because some people don't have an addictive personality or addictive brain chemistry, I suppose. If you're not underproducing dopamine, for example, you're not really likely to get addicted to a lot of things. Another one of those things that just kind of make me wonder, like, why can't I? Why can't I just get it together? You just have to come to terms with the fact that there are some things that you just can't do as well as somebody else. If you have food addiction, you just can't sit down in front of a chocolate cake or whatever happens to be your particular food trigger, binge trigger, whatever. You can't do that the same way as somebody who doesn't have that issue. You can't just be like, okay, I'm just going to take one slice and that's it. Chances are that ain't going to happen. All these motivational speakers and coaches all about the yes you can, you just need to believe in yourself, or alternatively fake it till you make it. What on earth kind of bird is that? Anyway, and I don't know how well that works for neurotypical people. I suppose it might be fairly effective, but that doesn't necessarily work for everybody all the time. I can play with light and shadow. It can be all mysterious. I guess this doesn't really look much more trustworthy either, huh? Anyway, so beating yourself up may not help all that much. Some people need to kick themselves in the butt, and some people need a certain amount of pressure and everything. It's all fine and good, but it can also be damaging to try to force that. And as I said, not everybody can necessarily do everything. Like, as a completely unrelated example, not everybody who lifts, who bodybuilds, can achieve the kind of physique that Arnold had in his prime. There are plenty of genetic factors, and sooner or later you have to come to terms with who you are and be comfortable in your own skin as far as possible. And there may be upsides. There may be some things that you have some kind of talent for or predisposition for or whatever. Like, a lot of people with ADHD are creative artists, that can work out, as you see. They might be better at thinking outside the box, stuff like that. It can be hard to find your niche. Fuck off. Not you, the fly. But that's just your quest. That's your journey. That's what you got to do, Rather than please others and try to live up to what they want, you need to find out what you want, what's best for you. And if that's not a lofty goal of, I'm going to become a millionaire, or I'm going to cure cancer, or I'm going to be a celebrity, or I'm going to whatever, if you just want to be happy or even just content, it's enough. You don't have to be a superhero. Even just, with some people, even just surviving is quite an accomplishment, quite frankly. And you should be proud of that. That's really just what I wanted to try to express. Like, if you're dealing with all of this shit, I have some idea of what some of it is like. Not all of it, of course, but I know that this stuff like that can make even seemingly trivial, mundane tasks challenging and draining and exhausting and frustrating. Sometimes I'm guilty of not reading something that would be good to read because I'm thinking, you know what, my memory is so terrible. In a week I will have forgotten 90%, so what even is the point? Why should I even bother? Like, that's the kind of stuff you need to avoid. Put effort in, but do realize that it might be a little more effort than what others think it is. And that's okay. You're doing your best. And yeah, that's about it. So, thanks for listening to all this rambling blah blah. Hope you're doing okay. As they say, it's okay to not be okay. It's a bit of a cheesy slogan, but it is true. Hey, Squidge. Can I get you on camera? No, of course now you disappeared. That's okay. So, yeah. Have a good one, folks. Thanks for watching, and hang in there, I guess.